Call the January 26, 2022 meeting of the Rotterdam Town Board to order. Ms. Marco, will you call the roll?
Mr. Christo?
Present.
Mrs. Miller-Herrera?
Present.
Mr. Dodson?
Present.
Mr. Mastriani?
Present.
And Mrs. Collins?
Present.
5 present.
A quorum is present. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Christo, will you lead us?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a minute to tell you some of the items that we've been working on. We've initiated department head meetings on a monthly basis. We believe this will improve our internal communications. We have improved internal controls between departments, which will result in better billing methods. And we have been meeting with the highway department to discuss our paving schedule for this year. We've also been working with various department heads on Sewer 2 Extension 1 billing. We have included Schenectady County in our meetings to resolve this issue. And since this is such an important issue, I have asked Mr. Dodson to provide an update.
Supervisor Collins, thank you. So, the last 2 weeks, the town, working in collaboration with the county, has worked diligently to resolve the sewer tax issue, and much to my surprise, pleased to announce there was a press release by the county basically indicating that the information that we submitted apparently must meet their requirements. There's an approval required by the county. It's a form 556B, which we did submit on the behalf of the town, which is an application for correction of multi-parcel errors. There were several errors in the tax warrant that was for 2022 relating to the sewer district. Our internal investigation identified those errors. We resubmitted the calculations back to the county. I would say based on the press release, apparently they've accepted them. So their meeting, I believe, is February 8th, if I'm not mistaken. That should be approved officially on that date. And once that is approved, then the town will begin the process of, I believe we've received about 2/3 of payments from property owners who have actually paid the bill already. And we will be making, a refund for the difference between what they paid and what the actual amount is. As indicated in the press release, the average payment to those parcels is about $36. And as you guys know, many of them are in the thousands. So I'm certain those property owners are going to be thrilled. I certainly would be. And we'll be able to provide more information as we continue to do, as we continue to go through this process. And we actually get a confirmation from the county legislature on the 8th of February that this is indeed good to go. That's the update. Thank you.
Jack, do you have a press release that I can have on record? Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll now move on to privilege of the floor. Ms. Marco, is there anyone who wishes to speak?
No, there is not.
Okay. Then we'll move on. Privilege of the floor is closed, and we'll go to our first resolution. Our first resolution is resolution number 66 of the year 2022. Will the clerk read?
A resolution to terminate the appointed position Director of Finance.
Do I have a motion
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
I'd like to explain my vote. I think these positions were very valuable positions, and the idea of eliminating really doesn't appeal to me, so I'm going to vote no.
Mrs. Miller-Herrera?
I'm going to explain my vote. Currently, we have nobody in charge of our finance. We have somebody on contract that's assisting us, and I think it's a mistake to eliminate positions in our finance office while we have nobody in charge up there. So I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Dodson?
I'm going to explain my vote. The town board, hired a financial consultant to come upstairs and and help us out with the finance department. The individual is doing a phenomenal job helping us out, and he will also be used to allow us to interview for a comptroller position and potentially other positions out there to stabilize that department. So my vote on this is yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
My vote is yes.
Mrs. Collins?
My vote is yes.
3 yes, 2 no, it passes.
Okay, the next resolution is resolution number 67 of the year 22. Will the clerk read?
A resolution to terminate the appointed position Director of Public Works.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Mastriani. Anything on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
No.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
I'm going to explain my vote. I'm going to vote no on this. I don't believe we are permitted to eliminate the position of Director of Public Works under the town law. Further, without anyone in charge of Public Works, we really have nobody to help us through things like the sewer debacle that the county had to step in and assist us with. So I think this is a mistake, and I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Dodson?
I'd like to explain my vote. The town of Rotterdam is long overdue in putting capable technical people in our Department of Public Works. I would agree with Council Member Miller Herrera's statement that the DPW and the sewer tax issue was a debacle. A lot of that results in potentially how that department's been run over the years. I've advocated for several years that we need a town engineer, and the sewer debacle for District Number 2, Extensions 1 and 2, directly relates to the lack of oversight downstairs in the DPW department. We have phenomenal people that work down there. They lack the technical expertise from an engineering standpoint to maintain the continuity down there, not only from the engineering of a town of 30,000 people, and interrelating with the other departments, relating to the comptroller or assessor. And until we work on some internal controls, we're going to continue to have the problems like we just did on sewer district number 2, extensions 1 and 2. I spent the better part of several weeks working through this issue, and from a consultant standpoint, I'm an engineer myself. It's very apparent down there that we need to take the control of the situation and place engineering level people down there to make sure that our town runs in an efficient, cost-effective manner. So my vote is yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
My vote is yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
3 yes, 2 no, passes.
Our next resolution is resolution number 68 of the year 2022. The clerk will read.
A resolution to terminate the position of paralegal government liaison.
Anything on the question? Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Councilmember Mastriani.
Mm-hmm.
Seconded by, or do I have a second? I'll second it. Second by Supervisor Collins. Anything on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Being that my amendment to make this termination of the position effective 2/4, which is the resignation date of the person in that position, I'm going to vote no.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
I'm going to explain my vote. During the agenda session, the supervisor indicated that we're eliminating positions, not people, which is antithetical considering this is a position that has somebody in it until February 4th. And based on that discussion, Mr. Christou made a motion to change the effective date to February 4th. So I'm not sure why we're eliminating positions while people are still in them. I don't know if we're trying to circumvent the union or what we're doing, but it seems rather silly to do so. So I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
3 yes, 2 no, passes.
Resolution number 70 of the year 2022.
69.
Yep, 69.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Always one ahead. Resolution number 69 of the year 2022. Will the clerk read?
A resolution to amend resolution number 20.22 to
Appoint Jeffrey Nisako as a member of the Town of Rotterdam Board of Assessment Review.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Mastriani. Do I have a second?
Yes. Mr.
Second.
Deb. Yep.
Seconded by Councilmember Dodson. Anything on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes. Passes.
Resolution number 70 of the year 2022. Clerk will read.
A resolution to amend resolution number 21.22 of, that just says or, but I'm going to make it of, the year 2022.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Second by Mr. Christo. And the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera? No. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no. Resolution passes.
Resolution number 71 of the year 2022. The clerk will read.
A resolution to award the bid for sodium hexametaphosphate for Mr. Signor that's in the audience.
Hi, Steve. You got it right, Miss Martha. You got it
I
right.
do like sodium hex though, I gotta
Did it for me, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'll make the motion.
Joe?
I'll second it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We have a motion by Councilmember Christo, and I have a second by Councilmember Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution number 72 of the year 2022. Will the clerk read?
A resolution requesting bids for the Rotterdam Junction stormwater improvements.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
A motion by Councilmember Christo, seconded by Councilmember Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion carries. All right. Resolution number 73 of the year 2022. Will the clerk read?
A resolution requesting bids for the 6th well water system improvements.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Mastriani. Anything on the question?
Madam Supervisor, I just want to confirm that all three of these bids will be available in the clerk's office, on BidNet, and on our website as well. Will they go on the website as well?
Oh, that's correct.
Yes. Anything else on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes. Passes.
Resolution number 74 of the year 2022. Will the clerk read?
A resolution to appoint stormwater manager for construction stormwater inspections.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Dodson. I'll second the motion, seconded by Supervisor Collins. Anything on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
And Miss Berry is here this evening, so I'd like to welcome her aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I support an engineer.
Okay, the next resolution is resolution number 75 of the year 2022. Will the clerk read?
A resolution to approve budget transfers to the 2021 and 2022 budget.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Mastriani. Anything on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes. Resolution passes.
And resolution number 76 of the year 2022. Will the clerk read?
A resolution accepting town board meeting minutes.
I'll move.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Christo. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Mastriani. Anything on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
And Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
That concludes our resolutions for the evening. We'll now move on to committee reports. Does anybody on the board have anything under their committee?
I'd like to report on a few things.
Okay.
So in a follow-up to the sewer district number 2 taxing issue, I want to make sure the residents are aware that as part of our budget approval for 2022, there was a reallocation of debt service and operation and maintenance costs. Any debt service would have been included on your tax bill that you recently received in January, and we continue to have the issue with sewer district 2 extensions 1 and 2, which I believe are going to be resolved. That doesn't mean the districts are done paying. In our, I believe it's our June bill, there's going to be operation and maintenance expenses charged both for sewer and water in our town. And people, again, that are residents and property owners in sewer district number 2, I want to make sure you realize there's a $385 bill coming in June to those property owners. And if you're in water district number 5, there's roughly, I believe it's a $157 bill coming in June for our water charge for O&M for district number 5.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say under miscellaneous?
Yes, I would. Regarding the sewer district rebilling, misbilling, in my research and speaking to some residences, it seems where the error came from is that it was not billed by EDUs. And I took 2 samples from 2 residents who were concerned, and the number the number of building units that were billed was exactly the same amount of foot frontage that was on their homes. So contrary to what the current administration mentions to the press, this really had nothing to do with the previous administration. This had something to do with someone at DPW misentering information of which the assessor then picked up and the tax department then picked up. So if we're quick to point fingers, okay, clearly whatever happened was an honest mistake by whoever did it, I'm sure. But we should really keep the fingers of blame to a minimum and worry more about solutions and moving forward. Clearly, somehow the units changed from EDUs to the number of feet. One person I knew had 120 units. He has 120 foot frontage on their home. Another person I knew got built for 60 units. They had 60 foot of frontage on their home. So we identified, clearly it was identified, where the mistaken number came up with. And thankfully the county was able to assist us in working towards a resolution.
Councilmember Chris Stewart, I'd like to respond to that statement. I don't believe that there's been any fair fighting to date. The actual issue relating to these units is clearly seen if we go back and look at the draft and our tentative budget versus our final budget. If you go to the Roman numeral 4 page, you can see the tentative budget that the units for Sewer District 2 Extension 1 were indeed in feet, just like the map plan and report back in 1957 would have indicated. What happened between that tentative budget and the final budget is the units were changed from feet to actually units that were EDU, and that was a grave error. That was not a recognition by the person that was reviewing those units, and I will say that was not DPW. That lack of recognition came from not knowing the history of our town and how our districts are formed, and it was just a number on a piece of paper that was easily commingled in with units, and voila, we had this new unit charge that didn't make a lot of sense. And because we had no internal controls, we had the director of finance with no comptroller at the time, with someone who had historical knowledge of our town, it was easily just rolled right up. And in light of our budget process, trying to exceed the tax cap, doing calculations at the 11th hour, errors were made, and there was no one to check those errors. Hence, we sent out our tax warrant to the county, and the new administration came in with a Sewer District number 2 Extension 1 and 2 big problem, that with the collaboration of the county, our Rotterdam County legislatures, And indeed, Mr. Jasinski, Mr. McGarry, Mr. Hess, Mr. Cuomo, the county finance department participated in this, and our new financial consultant played a major role in having historical knowledge from the town of Niskayuna. All that was brought together in the last 2 weeks to arrive at this resolution. And our job, again, is to be able to evaluate this and turn around a correction for our property owners. And that's exactly what happened here. At this point in time, you know, blaming any individuals, not doing anything for the people that have $3,000 or $2,000 bills. Very fortunate, I think, from the town board standpoint, that this is turning out to be a $36 bill now. Many lessons to be learned, and I believe the town board would be very interested in internal controls and those improvements to prevent this from happening in the future.
I'd like to speak on this too. As much as I appreciate what the county has done, and I do appreciate them working with us closely, but I would also like you to know that the town assessor, the town receiver of taxes, people with historical knowledge down in DPW, and our contracted controller, if that's what you want to say, he is, Mr. Sebesta, they have all been working around the clock to find out the figures, to actually go back and resource the maps of the sewer district. I cannot say enough about the people that work for this town and how they came together and worked together to try to find a solution and to make sure that the Rotterdam residents did not pay more than they had to pay. So I appreciate the cooperation that we got from the county. I think it's important for our local and county government to work together hand in hand for the benefit of the residents. But I also have to give praise, I suppose, to the people that worked here, because every department came together. You had 4 different departments that came together to work together for the Rotterdam resident. And I think that's something the Rotterdam residents can be proud of.
And it definitely should be recognized. Thank you for that, Madam Supervisor. I agree 100%.
Is there anything under miscellaneous? We did miscellaneous.
If there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember Dodson. Do I
I'll
have a
second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Nice job, yeah.